People joke about, hey, cope harder. Literally, cope harder.
Yeah, 1 million. To me, it came off, and I've not been the person to ever say this, it came off Charmin soft to me.
Yeah. This is the Rivalry Podcast, and I have never been.
I don't want to be here at all.
Better mental place than I am right now.
Shoot me to the moon and leave me.
Promise. This is the Rivalry. This is the Rivalry Podcast. Jace, JP, Michigan, Ohio State. All about the greatest rivalry in college sports, Michigan and Ohio State, from River Radio Ministries and presented by Elevated Integrity Construction. There are 1,003 things that we could get to right off the bat. We're going to withhold for a moment. We want to open up with Wheel Route the way we always do. Break the ice. I'm sure we've got some spicy questions written from JP this week. By the way, on social media, at Rival Pod, including on YouTube and at rivalpod.com. Has the 12-team college football playoff ruined the game? That's a good question, my friend.
I think. Do you want to go first, or you want me to? Because obviously I came up with these, so I've got quick hitting stuff.
You go first. You were on the field covering the game on Saturday. So again, at RivalPod and rivalpod.com, we got a bunch of pictures up there as well. Yeah, you go first on this one. Has the 12-team college football playoff ruined the game? I think
the answer can be yes and no. I really, and normally I'm a black and white kind of guy. I feel like there's got to be a definitive thing. But being there at the game, feeling the energy, feeling the emotion, this is all prior. Do I think it took away anything from that? No. The second I touched that field, it was like a wave of hate came over me. And seeing Michigan on the other side during warmups, I just wanted to go out there, and I'm not even obviously playing in the game. So I can only imagine what the players, especially some of those seniors, whether they acted like it or not. But feeling that energy, nothing was taken away from the game.
Yeah.
From a player perspective, the energy was there. The crowd was there.
For sure.
You felt it.
And as a fan, and I, you covered this from the shoe. Mm-hmm. I covered this from my living room, pacing back and forth nervously and throwing up.
But you've been there. You were there last year.
Well, yeah, I was there in Ann Arbor, and I went to the game just as a fan with my younger brother back in 21. Like, you can, even in the expanded playoff, you can feel it.
Now, will it in the future have, because this was obviously the first year of it, will this be something where you see a steady decline of like, well, yeah, but because this is the comment that I saw immediately, even walking back to my car after the game, and Jack Sawyer even said this on the field, which was just,
we'll get to Jack Sawyer.
This is a whole nother thing. Him on the field and other Ohio State fans, which just as a Buckeye infuriates me. Because you just lost as 20-point favorites at home when all your players all year long, all offseason, were talking about coming back just for this game to win a Big Ten championship, to win this game. You don't get it done. And then I'm walking out of the stadium and I'm hearing Ohio State fans say, well, our season's not done. We can still go to the playoffs. No, in that moment, my season was done.
Yeah.
That is
you feel the weight of it.
Yeah. That is I don't want to see that team take the field. They don't deserve to take that field again in a meaningful game. Get them out of there after that performance, dropping that. And so it's a half and half thing because right now, still fresh from the emotion of the game.
Yeah, we record these. By the way, we record these Monday mornings in case you're watching it later in the week. Okay, so we are right here.
I'm not even in stage like 3 of grief.
We ain't hit 48 hours yet.
Yeah. And so fresh off of the game, I don't like the 12-team playoff because in my mind, Ohio State should be out. You lose a game of that magnitude. And I saw somebody, I don't know the person on Twitter that was talking, but it's a Buckeye fan account. And they said something like all these people that are talking about how Ohio State needs to fire Ryan Day, and we'll talk more about our opinions on that later on. But you're seeing all this, and they're going, all these Buckeye fans, but we still have a shot to win a championship. And I'm going in my head, and I even responded, which normally I don't take the bait, but I responded and I said, that's fine. I get what you're trying to say, but tell me where in that game or where in Ryan Day's tenure, because I've been lenient with Ryan for a majority of the year. I've said numerous times on this season, especially, if Ryan Day lost this game, he's done. Yeah. And people were talking that
at this point last year.
Yeah, last year. And people were talking about, well, if he wins a championship, he won't get fired. There is no bone in my body now that truly believes Ryan Day can get that done because of games like this, because of games like Georgia.
I'm gonna pause you though.
Bama.
I'm gonna pause you though because I want to get today.
Yes,
I want to finish this question though. because I think overall I agree with you.
Yes and no.
Has it ruined it? I would say, based on the word ruined, I'd say absolutely not. The game is not ruined, but I get the spirit of the question, which is the bar is, I said this earlier this year, the bar is never lower than the most ultimate thing.
Taking away from the chance to knock that team out of the playoffs. It is the most
important thing and ultimate thing in football. The bar will never be lower. It can be higher. And I would say that it is not any lower than the most ultimate thing in football. The bar could be higher. It could be higher because that's where, if you're Michigan, you get the joy from last year of going, you like on top of going 15-0, winning the national title, you won the national title because you knocked your rival out.
Yeah.
You finished their season in Ann Arbor in 2023.
Yeah, you lose that game last year, you're not even in the playoffs.
And maybe Michigan still backs in. I don't know, but it's certainly not a guaranteed thing. And with a 13-0 Florida State sitting there, it's probably not going to happen.
Now you're talking about going into this, and this is, you nailed it right on the head. Now you're looking at it as, okay, Ohio State lost 2 games. They lost to Oregon and they lost to Michigan. And they are still in conversation.
They are still likely to make the playoff,
and not only make the playoffs, they are potentially host a game. So in that aspect, it does ruin the game.
I agree. I still don't know that I'd go as far as it ruins it, but again,
it doesn't ruin the spirit from a fan perspective.
On the sentiment, we're on the same page here. As I think we're seeing that 12 teams do not deserve to make the playoff.
Yeah,
8 teams. Sure.
And you're going to sure as heck see that after this weekend.
Well,
we're going to go down later on in the show and give our 12 rankings. And I can tell you today, I was disgusted with myself.
I can tell you there's a number of teams in there that do not deserve to be in the college football playoff. And Ohio State's one of them. And we'll get to that. Let me start with this. So in the past, we've given each other kind of 2 minutes to kind of monologue and kind of process whatever. I don't even know we can do that. Here's what came to mind immediately. This actually popped into my head. Last Wednesday before the game, you're trying, I'm trying to get myself hyped up. I'm rewatching Oklahoma, Alabama just to see what the path is to pull an upset like this. And what came to mind for me was legendary broadcaster Bob Ufer. You heard him in the opener if you're listening in your favorite podcast app. Legendary Michigan broadcaster Bob Ufer delivered a poem about some 50 odd years ago in reference to Michigan's 1969 upset of Ohio State. This was the beginning of what became known as the 10-year war between Bo Schembechler, Woody Hayes, and Michigan at that point were 17-point underdogs to what I believe was the number 1 ranked team in the country in Ohio State. And again, this was back before 12-team playoff and BCS and whatever else. And so they came into Ann Arbor. And I don't know at what point, if it was after the game or if it was a couple years later, but that was tied with, I believe, 1996 for the largest spread that Michigan has ever had in the game up until this Saturday. So Bob Ufer delivers this poem after Michigan wins both of those games, by the way, but after the 1969 win as 17-point underdogs. And so with Michigan at 19.5 or 23.5 or whatever it was on Saturday, I thought, this is my thought. I'm just going to read it. And I know you're going to hate every second of it.
I already do.
I'm going to read it. I'm going to try and read it with the inflection that he gave. And it's something special, man. It's something special about it. So from the legendary Bob Ufer, he says, they came to bury Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Well, they came to bury Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and while the marching band played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. And that's about the sentiment if you're a Michigan Wolverine today. Everybody told you, you have no shot. I will put my hand up and say, I predicted 38-13 Ohio State. Unless, and I said verbatim, unless you are Desmond Howard College game day, no one in their right mind is picking Michigan for all the reasons that are accurate. This is not a good Michigan football team. This is the worst Michigan team I've seen in at least a decade. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter. The $21 million in NIL in the offseason didn't matter. The transfer portal stuff didn't matter. Getting Chip Kelly in didn't matter. At home didn't matter.
Chip Kelly did matter.
20 and a half point,
just not in favor of
20
Ohio
and a half
State.
Point favorites didn't matter. We talked about, do you throw the records out in the game? May this be forever a resounding yes. That is an incredible win for Michigan.
My wife all week long kept saying, are you nervous about the game? And I said, absolutely. And she was like, but aren't they favored by a lot? And I said, absolutely. And I was trying to explain to her, like, she kept saying, do you really think Ohio State could lose? And I said, and you know me, I mean, I'm as confident a Buckeye fan as I don't think in this.
But we are both pessimistic fans in our own right,
and I think even in my time on this podcast, I've only picked against Ohio State maybe once, and it was when we played Georgia in the semifinal game. I think that's the only time I've ever.
Because why? Because you were coming off a loss to Michigan.
100%. And that is the only time I've ever picked against them. Other than that, I've always picked the Buckeyes. And I said, yeah, honestly, because it just doesn't matter.
Yep.
The record, the talent, it doesn't matter. If you thought Michigan was going to come in there and not be motivated to ruin Ohio State's season, to show people what they were made of, you're out of your mind. You don't know ball. We can't have a conversation. It's just not. As somebody who has watched this, this is my second time ever being physically present at the game. The energy in that is unmatched. We've seen some incredible college football games. We were at Ohio State, at Notre Dame.
We've done Notre Dame. We've done Happy Valley.
We've done Happy Valley
college football playoff.
That stadium on Saturday to kick off was the loudest stadium I have ever been in. And it was, I don't even know if it was close. There are games where I literally see everything shaking around me, Happy Valley being one of them. The beginning, the energy of that when Michigan took the field, when Ohio State took the field, when the opening kickoff happened, when Jack Sawyer had the interception towards the end of the game even.
Which you, by the way, shameless plug, you were right down in front of it at Rival Pod. Check it out.
That was the loudest environment that I've ever been in.
That was also the sickest that I've ever been, by the way, when Jack Sawyer picked that off. I mean, let's jump into it here. And there's 1,000 things to do. And here's what I want. We don't have to rush through this because this is what the whole podcast is built around.
We ramp up from early September till now for this moment.
So, I mean, here's the number one piece of analysis that people want to talk about. And I've got some stats that I want to get into about the way that the second half in particular went for Michigan and Ohio State, particularly fourth quarter.
Yep. I was going to say,
here's where I want to start. The most inconceivable, and again, I'm obviously the Michigan side of this podcast, right? The most inconceivable thing in the world to me, and this is the lowest hanging analysis out there because everybody in the stadium knew it. Trying to establish the run game on Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart and Jayshawn Barham and add whoever else got in the mix there, TJ Guy, together. Whatever, with a stitched up offensive line. Let me get my stats here, but I believe
26 carries for 77 yards.
And by the way, I'm going to take 10 yards out of that for Will Howard. 66 combined yards for the best running back duo in the country.
Well, and one of those runs was a Judkins 17-yard gain. So, I mean, outside of that chunk play.
So my question is, and I know there's not an answer that you have for this. My question is, if I'm an Ohio State fan, what in the world?
Well, and so obviously that's a fair point. I'm looking at this and that was the very first thing. The very first thing that I had was in the fourth quarter, Ohio State had 2 offensive possessions, resulting in 7 plays for 10 yards. And they had the ball for a total of 1 minute and 57 seconds.
And by the way, in those 2 drives, 1 passing yard.
Yep. And I think
let that sink in.
Well,
1 passing yard.
I marked this thing down as well because after the Caleb Downs interception deep in the Michigan territory, they started the ball Michigan's 16-yard line.
Yeah. And got no points out of it.
3 plays, 0 yards. You had 2 rushes for no gain, a pass completion for no gain, and then you I think
was that the delay? Was that the delay? The delay handoff? Was that drive?
I don't remember for sure. But
regardless, it was bad.
That was the one where we ultimately missed the field goal. Just unacceptable. I'm curious, and this isn't an excuse, so I don't want it to sound like that.
Listen, this podcast is nothing but venting for you and catharsis for me. Okay, the season is safe.
I wanted to do a bit of a deeper dive in this because after the beginning of the game, it had to have been early second quarter when Will Howard took the shot where he got hit by Makari Page.
It was second quarter. It wasn't late.
It wasn't late. he got just destroyed. A legal hit. I know there was a lot of people on Twitter talking about whether it was targeting.
It's all shoulder. It's a good hit by Makari Page.
Clean. It was just a nasty football hit.
Yep.
I'm curious how the play calling changed.
By the way, that's the stuff that you want to stay in the game. That's like, I know we're trying to protect quarterbacks and players and all that stuff. That's good.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But that's where I look at that and I go, did the play calling change after that drive? Because the very first drive, the Buckeyes drove right down, ended up getting a field goal, but they drove down almost seamlessly until they stalled out right at the end. Then they go back down and they're starting to do a little bit more. They're starting to get there. And I'm curious after that hit, how the play calling seemed to change. Because after that drive, I think other than the drive to close out the second quarter, which funny enough was when they were pass heavy because they were running a rush offense. They were doing basically no huddle the entire drive and they were wide open all the time. So I'm curious what Will Howard's health genuinely looked like. Not that I'm trying to accuse Ryan Day of them throwing him in, but let's be real. Off.
He did not look right.
He did. Well, I mean, he was on the ground for a decent amount of time. He did get up. He walked off kind of under his own help. He wasn't there.
But even other folks, shout out our buddy Dylan over at Delaware Gazette, is just a really observant journalist, and he's looking at going, he does not look right on the sideline. And again, to be clear, he's not accusing anybody of anything either.
No.
But it's surprising to me.
But I think it was one of those things. I didn't expect
him to come back in the game, to be honest with you.
I didn't either, but I think it was one of those things you could tell just in his game, even on the second interception towards, I think it was midway through the third quarter. I mean, he had his guy open. And he just threw it behind. A pass that Will Howard has been, if anything, surprisingly accurate this season.
Yeah,
he's had games where you can count him down for about a mistake a game. He made 2 of them. The first one was, honestly, both of them were just bad balls.
Yeah.
Which you just don't typically see. Some of the interceptions that he's had.
And that's where, like, as good as, and I heard Joshua Perry talking about this on The Fan this morning, where he was talking about, like, hey, I thought Pass Pro was pretty good overall. I thought it was okay.
It was fine until basically the end of the game.
I didn't think it was great. I thought it was okay, but that's where that pressure really comes to fruition too. If you know that at least there's the potential that you're going to get hurried, you get that ball out quicker than you want to. Mm-hmm. And that was a big part of the game plan for Michigan, of course.
Well, and that was the thing. Another huge thing was you saw when they were in their hurry-up offense towards the end of the second, they went right down the field and scored. The opening drive of the game, they threw the ball. They went right down and they got a field goal out of it.
So why would you go away from that?
And that's where I think maybe they knew something about Will Howard, where they were only throwing it if they absolutely had to. And not that that's an excuse.
No, but like if he's not good enough to go in there and throw the ball, you have got to... What Julian's saying it like you've got to do something different.
And that's where I think, and that's a deeper question, because I think that's where, and this is going to sound like I'm accusing, but if you're Ryan Day,
we're just talking.
He had to have known that he's coaching for his job.
Yeah, he's known that for a year.
And so I think
that's why they spent, and I know you get this, that's why they spent $20 million in NIL.
And so I think in his mind, he's looking at Will Howard laying on the ground and he's going, I'm coaching for my job and I'm about to have to win this game with Devin Brown. and I genuinely think, I've said it numerous times, I'm not a fan of Devin Brown, but this is where I look at just the game plan for Ohio State all season long, where you've wasted reps giving Devin Brown reps that don't matter because you don't trust him to go in and win you the game. Julian Sain is supposed to be the QB1 next year. Unless bearing any transfer portal or a quarterback battle like Taylor
as of right now, that's the guy.
And you've not given him enough reps to come into that game. And this is the biggest difference. You look at games.
And by the way, for his, and it's not apples to apples. So, but hear me on this. For as much flack as Michigan has taken for their lack of quarterback depth, what does that tell you about Ohio State?
And here's the difference. Not that they won't get there,
but not that they won't get there.
No,
but
and
we've also got Jaden Davis sitting on the bench right now too. What you're saying
is not wrong, is because I'm looking at this and I'm going, I remember a couple of years ago at Michigan where JT Barrett goes down and we throw in a guy by the name of Dwayne Haskins as a true freshman.
And he was incredible.
And you don't have that anymore. You don't even have a reliable backup. Ohio State should have had a backup quarterback that you could have brought in for a couple of drives to go in there that could have still competed with a team that had the talent level of Michigan, who was missing their best receiver or best offensive receiver. They were without Will Johnson.
Yeah.
And you couldn't go in there and complete passes with 3 future NFL first round picks.
And that's and this goes all the way back. And if I sound a little salty, it's because I get to be a little salty today. when Jeremiah Smith signed with Ohio State, my comment was, and I ripped this straight off some random jabron on Twitter, and I still think it holds up. Cool. Another 5-star receiver. That'll fix it.
And you know what doesn't help is when you don't even target him. Jeremiah Smith in the first half had 2 PIs. Yep. And then he had a touchdown.
Which, by the way, brilliant penalties because Michigan was beat.
The best way to cover Jeremiah Smith is to simply hold him.
Yeah.
Because what do you lose by that? It's not the NFL.
We've got Zeke Berry, who and I'm gonna get the position wrong. I believe is converted over from a nickel to a corner.
Yeah.
And in any case, he's not the number one guy, right? Like it's been Will Johnson, Jair Hill. Hill, I think, is going through some sort of disciplinary something or other, whatever. But it's Amir Hall out there and Zeke Berry, who, by the way, Zeke Berry is going to be a really good player, but he's not there yet. Mm-hmm. We can't keep up with that receiving core without Will Johnson, and they did.
Well, and it's because Ohio State didn't go to him. Jeremiah Smith in the second half had 0 targets.
He finished with 5 catches, 35 yards, and the touchdown.
Because they're not targeting him. And you talked about it earlier when you're looking at the offensive game plan.
Let that sink in, though. If you're a Michigan fan, if you're an Ohio State fan, let it sink in. Yes, he had the touchdown. Mm-hmm. 5 catches, 35 yards.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think
what is that? Number one, give credit to Michigan's defense still, because even if they struggled a little bit in the secondary, they didn't give up any big plays. I think the longest play was 24 yards passing.
And I think some of it,
and the pass rush was there. Give some credit to Michigan on that.
I think you can. I think a majority of it is on the play calling.
It's all of it, right?
It goes hand in hand. You can't take away Michigan stopping the run.
It is absurd. It is absurd that Ohio State decided. And again, shout out Joshua Perry. I think he's a really, I enjoy listening to Joshua Perry.
Former Ohio State linebacker.
I think he's a really sharp dude. I like listening to his analysis. But he nailed this too, where it's like the one thing that Michigan has, you decided you're going to try to prove, and he these are his words. He said, you're trying to still prove the toughness piece. And this is where Ryan Day, for a number of reasons, but this is why Ryan Day has struggled so much, is because as much as everyone tried to say, well, we're not worried about what they think about us. When Jim Harbaugh said, yeah, some people think they were born, some people were born on third base. They think they hit a triple, but they didn't. Everyone's like, oh, that's just Jim. That sat with Ryan. When Lou Holtz, of all people, said, that's not a tough team. That sat with him. And he has tried for 2 years now to prove that they're a tough team. If you're a head coach, especially at this level, you have got to rise above that and go, we're going to be our team. He's in the skull session. He talked about, this isn't about them. This is about us. It's about our toughness as Buckeyes. It's about our character. It's about blah. You show none of that. Mm-hmm. Once again, they do this every year.
When you look at Ohio State games, especially in recent years under the Ryan Day era, and you can probably do this with every team when they lose a big game, you can point out 2 or 3 pivotal moments. We've done it in the past when it's been Ohio State and Georgia. We talk about it all the time. The going for it on 4th down, Kirby calls a timeout. Ryan Day decides to go out and then punt. They give up I think they were up 9 or 10 at that point. They give up the lead, lose the game ultimately.
Yeah.
I'm looking at 2 plays, and I'm not sitting here saying that this cost Ohio State, but if you want to pinpoint 2 very pivotal moments
and listen,
in this
we're going to nitpick this game to death. Okay, this is our Christmas. Okay,
you can say Christmas. What you want. Say what you want about Will Howard throwing an interception from the Ohio State 4 that allowed Michigan to score their only touchdown of the game. You can talk about Will Howard's interception at the Michigan 16 after the Caleb Downs interception that went absolutely nowhere. He threw it behind the wide receiver, resulted in 0 points.
And again, by the way, as an aside there, shout out Makari Page because he
plays all game.
He has not looked like the 2023 version of Makari Page. He did on Saturday. And that's, again, big players, big plays, big games, right?
You talk about, you want to throw out the Jaden Fielding missed field goals. He had a 34 and a 38 yarder that he missed. You've got to have those.
Can I jump in there real quick? Because I found this because I went back. I wanted to see, and I apologize here as I'm trying to look through my notes here for it on the special teams kicking him. Yeah. I had written down special teams makes a difference yet again. 2023 and 2024 now. Okay. And obviously different player, but at the end of 22 in the Georgia game, Ohio State misses a critical kick that probably wins the national championship. Let's be honest about it. But in 2023, so you missed that one to end the 22 season. Jaden Fielding in the game, 2023 and 2024 is 2 for 5.
Yep.
6-point game in 23, 3-point game in 24. He went 2 for 5 in those 2 games.
Chip shots.
James Turner, 23. Dominic Zavada this year. James Turner went 3 for 3 in 2023. Dominic Zavada went 2 for 2. They combined 5 for 5.
Yep.
Including, of course, James Turner had a 50-plus yarder, I believe, in the game last year. Zavada had a 50-plus yarder this year. There's your ball game. It matters. Go ahead with what you were going to say, but like that's a massive. In a low-scoring game like this, that's a massive piece of that.
It's obvious to go and look at this and go, well, yeah, if Ohio State keeps control of the ball and doesn't give Michigan the ball at their 2-yard line.
If everything had gone differently, it would have gone differently.
If everything would have gone different, it's easy to sit there and go, well, they make the field goals, they win 16-13, or if they end up kicking that extra field goal instead of turning it over in Michigan, then blah blah blah. Those aren't what cost them. Yeah. You want to know the difference between these teams. 3rd and 6 from Ohio State's 44-yard line. Khalil Mullins gets the ball. He appears to be stopped. Even in the stadium, people are like, yes, we got it. We got it.
Yeah, I think I threw up in my mouth watching it.
And then he breaks loose. I don't remember who was the initial contact for Ohio State. I want to say it was Tyleik Williams that got in there first.
Think so.
But Jack Sawyer was right behind it.
Yep.
2 of your best defensive linemen get a hand on Khalil Mullins in the backfield for no gain. Yep. It would have pulled up a 4th and 6 from Ohio State's 44. Michigan's punting. You're getting the ball back with 5-ish, 6 minutes to go.
Who knows?
Who knows? You don't. He rips off a 27-yard run. Then what really kills it is you go down. Ohio State has, I think it's 3rd and 2. They're at Ohio State's 9.
Yep, correct.
And you get an illegal substitution. Just absolute boneheaded. You were outcoached.
Yeah, again.
You were outcoached against a Michigan coaching staff that for half the season didn't even know all of the rules. They were about 2 or 3 weeks
I can laugh now because things have been many things are forgiven.
Wink Martindale.
Yeah.
That name.
Who by the way, Wink in the back half of the season has been phenomenal.
Was fine. But you got outcoached by a coaching staff that had cost their team handfuls of wins this year.
Yep.
And that's to give credit to Michigan too, because I think Travion Henderson said this after the game where he said their record is not what it should be. They are a better team than what their record shows.
Well, you can, to lean into that for a second, like you can if and but your way through college football. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
This is now a 7-5 team. There's at least 2, if not 3 games on the schedule that Michigan looks at and goes,
they'd love to have back.
We probably could have beat Indiana. Probably could have beat Illinois. Probably could have beat Washington. Mm-hmm. That's a very different football team.
And that's what I think Travion was trying to say.
You both can't do that, but you're right. That's the point he's driving home.
But that mindset, I think a lot of people looked at this team.
Yeah, with a bit better coaching, we might be okay here.
And that's where I think Travion was trying to say is like people wanted to say, yeah, this is a team that only won 6 games, but you take some of those coaching decisions away.
Sure, yeah.
It's a whole brand new ball game.
This is the coaching staff that, and I dogged Sharon for this because he deserved it, that challenged the Colston Loveland catch out of bounds. Why? Just because that forgot he had timeouts in the Indiana game. What are we doing here? And then showed up and balled out. It wasn't an amazing on the offensive side. Kirk Campbell can still be launched into the sun. There's some inexcusable stuff in there.
Davis Warren throwing for 60-something yards and 2 interceptions he was not a factor.
But Sharon Moore overall, I mean, that and I'll let you get back to your point here, but like Sharon Moore overall takes a team that could have mailed that game in and said, not only are we not mailing it in, I genuinely did not believe he would have that team ready to play. When I 100% will admit that. I did not expect that team to come out and look like they were. I did not believe that they believed at all. And belief is just the beginning of it. Then you have to execute. He had him ready.
Even when it was 10-10 at the half, I thought Ohio State started to have the momentum. Yep. I thought they were going to come out of the half. I thought they were going to come out of the half, score the opening drive. Things would settle down. They'd get into control. I don't think it was going to be a 20-point thing, but I thought, okay, we'll see a 28-17.
I thought 38-13 was still in play.
But I thought Ohio State's going to get their feet under them. They're going to go in, having Will Howard have a chance to get a breather. He'll come out and they'll be all right. And they came out and did nothing.
We finally have an answer to the question, Will Howard. The answer is no.
I can't even say anything. I don't want to place the blame on him, though, because I genuinely think...
But he did not play well.
He didn't play well, but I think part of that is...
It's across the board. Like, it's not a one... The only place that it's a one-person issue is Ryan Day.
Yeah.
Will Howard did not play for all and I'm, this is a rivalry podcast. I gotta be, sometimes I'm like, oh, that's too mean. No, I'm gonna lean into it. For all the cigarette stomping talk that Will Howard has done this year,
I'm fine with that. My issue isn't with
Will.
I
don't have problems with that, but I'm saying to have walked with the swagger that Ohio State did all offseason into and through this season and put out that performance straight into the veins, man.
I think that's fair, but I also think to be an elite program, you have to kind of have that kind of cocky attitude. The stuff that bothered me on Saturday, and I knew it was going to happen, was there were two things. The one happened during the game. And
was it the loss? Is that what bothered you?
The loss launched me to the core of the earth after that. Having to walk back and into that, knowing I was going to be here Monday, the worst. At least the Browns couldn't ruin it. Did
they not play? Oh, they played tonight. I was like, how did they not? Gotcha.
Yeah. Will my heart let me watch it? Yes. Will I be upset at myself? Yes.
I need 20 points from Bo Nix. So if they could not do too well, that'd be okay.
There's two things that really bothered me on Saturday. The first one, and I knew it was going to happen around Saturday evening. Kyle McCord goes in and they upset Miami.
Yeah,
and
man. Let's talk about this.
After the game, they go up and they go, what does it mean? Does it mean anything good? Or I forget how the question was phrased, but essentially, does it feel good to know that you perform this way and upset Miami and then you get to watch Ohio State lose? And he said, everything comes full circle.
Yeah,
Kyle, you lead the nation in interceptions, my
Kyle,
guy.
you are not that guy.
You play for the Syracuse Orange. Your mascot is an orange. You play in a dome. You play in the ACC.
Play in a dome.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah, Kyle is not that guy.
Kyle, this is
the equivalent of John O'Corn running his mouth.
I still think Kyle McCord is a talented player. Kyle McCord takes that hit that Will Howard took. He's not coming back into the game. He doesn't have the toughness.
Yeah. Kyle McCord threw the same number of interceptions as Will Howard did in his edition of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
He was healthy for it. I genuinely think Will Howard was not 100%. And so that's infuriating to me because people will look at him and if Will Howard's playing in the ACC against some of those.
I don't think there's anybody serious who looks at that and goes, yeah, Kyle McCord would have been an upgrade.
No. I saw some Michigan players, but I'm sure it was all trolling.
Well, for sure. Will Howard was an upgrade. He did not play well today.
Here's the thing that really infuriated me Saturday. And this will start to get into kind of our discussion on Ryan Day.
Yeah.
So Saturday, I'm down sideline. I'm towards the end zone, and it's a 10-10 game at the moment. And there's, give or take, 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. Ohio State they're calling their timeouts, trying to slow stuff down, get stuff kind of ready to go. And I'm looking at the huddle, and Ryan Day's nowhere to be found. You know where Ryan Day was during those huddles? And I don't know. I'm not obviously a football coach. I like to act like I am.
Yeah.
I'm a very good couch coach, but I don't know the protocol to know like what the norm is for head coaches to be involved in the huddles.
Was he at Dirty Frank's getting concessions?
He needs to be looking on Zillow is where he needs to be. But I'm sitting there watching, and I'm watching the players go there, and this is when I knew that Ohio State was going to lose. Was after the illegal substitution play. They had a timeout, or the players were kind of regrouping, and the Ohio State players were screaming at the coaches, saying, "We don't know the play. What's the call?" And they were freaking out because they could tell the pressure of the moment, and they weren't getting what they needed.
Could you tell that's what they were yelling about?
Yeah, I was on that end zone.
Okay.
And I don't remember the player off the top of my head. I think it was Sonny Styles was going back, and I'm not going to use the phrasing that he used, but he said, "We don't know the call." And he screamed that at his coaches.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there watching this team, and I can tell they're flustered.
Sure.
And I'm seeing Michigan come out completely fine, and I'm looking, and Ryan Day is off on the side. The circle is here. Ryan Day is 10 yards away by himself, just standing there. And in the back of my mind, I don't know the protocol for coaching.
Sure.
I don't know if it's normal,
but
whatever.
If you're hearing a player yell, "We don't know the call," that's a problem.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm going, I don't care what protocol is. This is the game. It is a 10-10 game. You need to get a stop. You are on the verge of losing. This is why all these seniors, this is why Jack Sawyer, JTT, Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom.
You drop the bag to keep guys here.
This is where, as a coach, I don't give a crap what the protocol is. I am in the middle of every single huddle. Yeah. I'm grabbing face masks. I'm doing whatever. And I'm saying, you get out there, you get a stop. We don't let them remember the time. They don't gain another yard.
You're telling me that dancing
blitz all night.
You're telling me that Ryan Day dancing to Walking Yo Trap is not invigorating the team in this moment?
It's not going to get me pumped up. But to see what felt to me like a lack of energy from the person that runs the whole show.
Yep.
Infuriated me because I'm on the sideline as a spectator and I'm buzzed. I'm ready to go.
Sure,
I feel the electricity.
You're like, Sonny, I'll tell you the call.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, give me a headset. I'll run in there and I'll swing a few punches. Yeah. I'll go in there and I'll get some players ready to go.
They could have used you after the game. We'll get to that too.
I would have gone after somebody else, but I'm sitting there and I was just dumbfounded watching that. And I'm sure that the protocol is, well, they let their assistants and their guys talk to their groups and so on and so forth. You're the head coach. All the pressure is on you.
Yeah.
Control your moment.
Yeah.
Get in there, be a leader, show toughness, get in there and get your players ready for that moment.
Well, and
he didn't.
And let's not forget that afterward he was asked about, again, that 3rd and 2 gave Michigan a first down
and let them run more time off the clock.
Which, in one sense, I suppose you could say, well, it didn't matter. It does, though.
It did.
It absolutely does.
For sure.
And then afterwards, he's asked about it. And I get, in one sense, I get coach speak is coach speak. Sharon does it. We'll see with Will Johnson. He was never played in the game. Like, we know that now, sort of thing. I get it. But he was asked about that particular play, and he said, well, he said there was miscommunication. Mm-hmm. Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. No.
But then talked about how Michigan came out of the timeout fast and they didn't really have enough time to match personnel with what they put out there. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You're coming out of a timeout. Michigan did not go particularly quickly. If there's one thing Michigan doesn't do, it's tempo. Okay. Mm-hmm. Michigan came out, just jogged over to their spot, and Ryan Day was just not ready.
You should be prepared.
That is the worst excuse, because, by the way, that came I believe right after they said, hey, so what was up with moving away from the passing game? And he said, well, it was pretty windy.
No. As somebody that was there,
I don't know, man.
As somebody who was there on the sideline, it was not.
This is where, for Ryan Day, when we did the podcast last week, I talked about, for Michigan, a couple different things. I talked about how there is a path to victory for this game. And I've said for weeks, it's covered in razor wire and poison ivy, but there's a path. And Michigan walked the path. Mm-hmm. They did not. I think I said that they needed to get, I think somewhere around like 3 sacks. They didn't get that.
Neither team gave up a sack, which is crazy.
But they definitely affected the game.
Davis and Igmanosin did not have a pass interference
because we didn't throw the ball downfield.
It was too windy.
But Michigan up front, obviously that defensive line did what they needed to do. Michigan ran the ball again, not terribly well in one sense, but also ran for 175 yards or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I guess they did. So they got that done. They did the defensive line piece, was a massive part of that game, obviously, for creating a little bit of havoc, for shutting down the run game. And then they got the 2 turnovers. They weren't 2+, right? I think it ended even, but they got 2 turnovers. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they walked that path out.
And, I mean, both pivotal. They weren't midfield turnovers. One was to prevent a score. One was to get a touchdown, the only touchdown they scored.
And where that connects back, I'll pull that back, because the other thing that I said, too, is that if you're Michigan, you have the opportunity to plant seeds of doubt in this game. I check the tape. Maybe I just thought this, but I'm pretty sure I said this on the pod. You can plant seeds of doubt if it's close at halftime. If you're and I think I even said, if you're in a dogfight in the 4th quarter, you've planted those seeds of doubt. Is Ryan Day and this team mentally tough enough to overcome that? They aren't. Mm-hmm. You can be tough pregame, postgame.
Well, you thought
whatever.
Even at the end of the game, Jack Sawyer goes up there and snags a great interception. I mean, a heck of a play by him. The only play he's made his entire Ohio State career, and he goes up there and he gets the interception.
And you thought it was over.
And I didn't think it was over.
I thought it was over.
But I thought, here's a chance for Ohio State to go down, get into field goal range.
That's the story. If you're Ohio State, obviously for me, that is a nightmare. That is the storybook cinematic moment. By the way, now this is a side note. I thought this when this happened too. He took his helmet off. I don't know how that's not a 15-yard penalty on top of that, by the way. So like some odd decision making there from the officials. Whatever. Go on with what you're saying though.
But the second he got it, I believe on that drive they went 3 and out. I don't think they got a single first down.
They did not get
you got all that momentum.
Their last first down came with about 6 minutes to go in the 3rd quarter. Yeah. That's unbelievable.
You get a beautiful, a game-changing interception by your captain who came back, and you do nothing with it. And
Absolutely
it was
nothing.
at that moment that I knew we are not cut out to win this game. We don't deserve to win this game.
And you know, who is it that can't get to Kalel? Like you mentioned it, Jackson. And
I know that Jack was in there. I want to say it was Williams for sure.
Sawyer was not the initial contact. And again, I've seen people say, well, he's being bear hugged around by Evan Lake. Sure. Yeah. Like there was a hold on there that probably got missed. There's also a ton of other stuff in that game that you could have called.
I'm not going to nitpick that.
Listen, you are 20.
You had him.
You are, if you're wise, you are 3 touchdown home favorites. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
I don't think it matters. You had Khalil in the backfield in a group.
And here I thought
9 times out of 10, you don't let that rip for 27 yards, but that was the 1 out of 10.
And here I thought that the USC run was going to be like the run of Kalel Mulling's career.
I got flashbacks of it.
And it wasn't. That was the one right there.
I mean, I'm not a Michigan fan, so I can't rank it. I feel like
that's the one.
I feel like the USC one.
That's the one because
I get it.
Because
I understand how you get to that
because of who it's against, right? Like everything gets amped up here. You mentioned the or I mentioned, I guess the last first down for Ohio State came with like 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. Like the last earned first down. Not hey, we got an interception, whatever. We mentioned the fourth quarter summary a bit, but I want to just go back to this here because the second half, I'll do second half and then fourth quarter because I think these tell a story that we already know at this point. The second, and again, this shows that like this is still not a good Michigan team offensively, at least the defense is fantastic.
No, I mean good running backs.
Second half drives for Michigan: punt, interception, field goal,
and they won the game.
Ohio State: punt, interception, missed field goal, punt, downs, and they lost the game. Second, where's the other part? Yeah, so the fourth quarter summary. You mentioned Ohio State, 7 plays, 10 yards, under 2 minutes of possession, 1 passing yard. Michigan had fourth quarter, 22 plays, 110 yards, 13 minutes and 3 seconds.
Yep.
There's your ball game right there. The other part of it in the fourth quarter, Michigan went 4 of 5 on third down. Ohio State was 0 for 2
because it was short third down.
Well,
third and twos.
Some of it was, but there were a couple plays where, and in particular, I'm thinking the throw to I believe it was
end?
Well to Hansen.
Are you talking about the one on the sideline?
Wasn't that Peyton O'Leary though, or was that Hansen?
I don't remember who it was, but it was to the sideline where they snuck underneath of it. And
that one was Peyton. So there was one to Hansen, the tight end, who's ended up playing for Colson Loveland today. I thought Klein was in there, but I thought Hansen got targeted a decent amount there. But yeah, it was Peyton O'Leary, who's a walk-on, gets his hands under the ball on a fairly long third down. 4 of 5 on third down in the fourth quarter. And so this is where, if you're Michigan, you look at time of possession, you look at plays, whatever. For everything else that Michigan hasn't done well this year, this is the 4th year in a row now, where when push comes to shove in the fourth quarter, Michigan says, we are going to run it down your throat until you stop it.
Yep.
And for the 4th year in a row, whether it be Jim Knowles or whoever's running Kerry Coombs or whoever, the defense cannot stop it. And yeah, like Sawyer picks him off in the end zone on the goal line. So like in that sense, it's you stopped it, I suppose. But Michigan had the ball for 13 out of 15 minutes.
Yeah,
like it just can't happen if you're going to win ball games. Man, what else do we want to talk about with this game?
I feel like before we go into our playoff rankings and all that, I do want to touch a little bit on Ryan Day. Because we've brought him up a handful of times.
So let's do Ryan and then let's talk about. Do you want to do post game stuff first, or you want to do Ryan first?
Let's do post game stuff and then go into Ryan because I feel like it ties in nicer.
So I mean, here's my short view on the flag planting thing. Tough,
and that was honestly that was one of the wheel route questions was approved, disapproved.
That is genuinely my thought on that. You know who planted a flag earlier this year and had no issue? Texas, in Ann Arbor. They planted a flag and we went, yeah. And that was the end of it.
Yeah.
There's a difference too between, and I know you mentioned off mic, like there was maybe a little bit of taunting or whatever, but not much. And here's the thing. This is different from Michigan's going to gather in front of the Ohio State tunnel and plant the flag and kind of, we're going to jog. Michigan's at midfield doing their own thing. Ohio State's singing Carmen. And Ohio State decides, now we're going to get busy.
Yeah.
That is, and so when I say things, and I took a little heat for this, I don't care. When I say things like that's a soft program, that is exactly what I mean.
And
that is more fight than you showed for 60 minutes. And again, this is the rivalry, and I not what happened after. I love the fact that there's jawing from Ohio State and Michigan pregame. I absolutely love that.
I couldn't share.
I have no issues with that at all.
I couldn't share Michigan running out of the tunnel because
I'm sure you couldn't.
I have video of it. I'd love to show you after. But
it's just which that aspect of it disappoints me. Like I've been to the game as a fan, and I've been disappointed with it. Not in the game itself, but in the fan interaction.
It was
stuff.
Both. Honestly,
it's just like
Michigan came out and they were giving middle fingers.
Patrick Barron took photos of guys being spit. Like that's not
unacceptable.
Okay. I'm talking about just straight up like, hey, we're jawing at each other. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. The post game thing again. You're saying, Carmen, Michigan wants to plant a flag at midfield to celebrate a victory that they earned. Tough. And especially for Jack Sawyer, who I get the emotions are high. I get the emotions are high here. But after the game is when you want to get real tough about this.
And here's the thing.
Get out.
It's the only credit that I'll
ridiculous.
Give. I'm not agreeing that Jack Sawyer was in the right. That game was not lost because of the defense.
By the way, petition to call him Jack Owen Foyer.
Fair. I saw something that said Jack Sawyer's statue in the Pickerington subway is going to be phenomenal. But which pained me, but kind of fair.
Kind of funny.
Here's
when you don't win the rivalry game and you graduate without gold pants, that's what happens.
And I think when it comes to Jack Sawyer, I understand the frustration. It was more embarrassing as an Ohio State fan seeing that reaction because you've already lost the game as major favorites.
Yeah, that is the by spread. And I know people said, well, the COVID year was bigger.
Yeah,
they didn't play the game.
Doesn't matter.
They didn't play the game. As far as we can document, in the 120-year history of this game, that is the biggest spread.
Yep.
And Michigan won.
And to Ohio State's credit, the defense did not lose them the game.
Correct.
So I think part of that, whether Jack would admit it or not, is he's frustrated that he didn't win the game, first off. I think he was frustrated that he feels like the offense failed them.
Yeah. Because by the way, despite the, and he did not make the tackle he needed to. Mm-hmm. Jack Sawyer played a good game.
Yeah.
It wasn't phenomenal.
He
had two tackles, 2 assists, and he had a massive interception. Mm-hmm. He played a good game.
He played fine. He played a good game. The defense isn't what lost him.
But he has none of the Ohio State players have any business messing with Michigan after the
100%.
game.
I am of the same mindset.
Like
you had all game long to prevent that from happening. You didn't. It makes you come across soft. It makes you come across as salty. I don't like the people that are going and saying
the Ohio State beat the soft team allegations continue to not be beaten.
And I've not seen it from any like Ohio State person that was at the game that was in the media saying, I'm glad that they did that. I've not seen that. I've seen a lot of fans.
There's a few.
I've seen a lot of fans that have said like, I'm proud of Jack Sawyer for doing that. I don't.
That's embarrassing.
It made for a great photo op. Sure. It made for a great representation of what the rivalry means. Sure. But
I don't even. Well, I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
We're
fans of that intensity. It shows not like that.
Yeah, it shows the fire that those players take that game seriously with. But after that game, as heavy favorites as they were, just get off the field.
Correct.
Your season. He said it on the
Carmen,
field.
Get into the tunnel.
He said it on the field, and I disagree. And I talked about it at the beginning of this episode, even where he was on the field talking to Mason Graham.
Yeah,
he's going,
yeah.
Your season's over.
He's screaming,
ours,
your season's
blah, blah, blah.
over.
Which, first off, isn't even technically true. Michigan will play in the Pop-Tart Bowl or something.
Which, you know what? I'm back on board for bowl season, baby.
Their season's not done technically, and I hate that mindset that in your mind, your immediate thought after that game is, well, our season's not ruined.
Well, it is straight up. People joke about, hey, cope harder. Literally, cope harder.
Yeah, 1 million. To me, it came off. I've not been the person to ever say this. It came off Charmin soft to me.
Yeah,
big baby, sore loser. I thought the response Khalil Mullings after the game with Jenny Taft.
Folks got to learn. This is bad for the game, bad for college football. You got to learn to lose.
And in the heat of the moment, coming off a win like that, it would have been easy for him to gloat, to showboat, to say some headline clickbait thing, to do it.
Well, let's be honest. Colston Loveland kind of did that with Michigan State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're going to do things right for 60 minutes. And after, if they want to get busy, we'll get busy.
Mm-hmm.
I like the mentality. I don't think it's good for football. And he walked it back later, and I get that. I haven't seen nobody walk it back from Ohio State.
No, and I don't think you will. But to me, there are parts of that where, and there's videos and there's pictures going around where Jack Sawyer's being held back from an assistant coach, and he's screaming, they're not going to plant a flag again, blah, blah, blah. And he's screaming, and you can tell, and this is the human side of things, where I genuinely watch that and I go, man, that sucks for a guy like Jack Sawyer to come back.
Yeah.
But you didn't deserve it.
Correct.
And then you look at Ryan Day, and he's 5-10 yards away.
Yep.
And that's your senior captain that you're supposed to get control of your program. And I was talking to my wife because she cares so deeply. And I had
she doesn't, but she's a good spouse.
I had nobody to vent to. And I said, and this is where we can kind of talk more into the Ryan Day stuff. I am now of the mindset, and I've been on the fence, and you were here with Harbaugh for a while at the beginning years. I am now on the fence where Ryan Day's got to go. Yeah, well, and not mostly because of this game, but because of the big games. And I talked about it even this episode. I look at his body of work, and I go, I don't believe that he has it in him to win a championship. If they host a playoff game, do I think that they could cause some damage? Sure, if they get their offense worked out.
This is still a talented team.
I think that they could win a game or two, depending on who their matchups are. I think that they are still a talented team if they can get this mental hurdle over.
But they can't. And that's the issue.
And maybe the players can. I'm talking Ryan Day.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
Even if Ryan Day can get past the first round, second round, I don't think he has it in him. He's shown me his history, his body of work, where when the moment gets too hot, the lights get too bright, there's one or two career-defining plays where he loses it. Where Ohio State is right in it up until XYZ. And then these mental mistakes, this ego, this lack of preparation comes back to haunt him. And I have lost faith. And I said this to the guy on Twitter where I said, usually in order for me to believe something could be true, I have to have seen it be true somewhere else for me to be able to cling on to.
Well,
Ryan Day has done nothing.
It's like when Bjork comes out and says, I've got full support for Ryan Day. My question is based on what?
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. To have confidence in somebody, you have to have something to place that confidence in. Otherwise, you're just going, I don't know. Because by the way, I saw a side-by-side where this is basically what he said about Jimbo Fisher at A&M. We saw how that worked out.
Yeah. There's nothing about it, unless he begins to prove me wrong. There's nothing about his body of work that makes me think that he's going to get it done in a big game. And I think eventually you're going to see it start to hurt when it comes to recruiting. Well, I know a lot of the 2025 recruits were coming out saying, I'm still with the Bucks. Cool. And I didn't even mention this yet, but after the game, I was walking back up to the press box to get my belongings and get ready to head home and everything. And honestly, just to sit up there and decompress, let traffic run out for a little bit. And so I start walking up, and where you walk by is where all the recruits are at.
Yep.
And numerous Michigan players ran over and were shaking hands with the recruits and saying, they're never going to beat us. You guys they're never going to beat us. They can't beat us.
And you see that, and that's brilliant.
Well, and what made me furious is, and some of these kids I'm sure haven't made decisions. Whatever. But they're laughing. The one guy closest to me starts laughing. He's like, oh man, ha 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 ha. That is a recruit. Yeah. And eventually that's going to trickle down. The more that these big games get lost, the more that you become an unserious football team in these big moments. Yeah. The more that you're going to lose recruits like that, because they're not going to want to go play for a coach that can't get it done in the big game. Yeah. And so I'm looking big picture, and I'm going, you're losing your rivalry games. Yep. You're making the playoffs, but you're losing. And now you're losing big recruits because your track record is XYZ.
Ryan Day standing around and saying what happened
at the end of the game
is the perfect encapsulation of his tenure at Ohio State and when it comes to the game.
And that was my other part, is they asked him after the game, what happened after the play with the scuff, when he said, well, they were going to plant a flag and our seniors weren't going to let it happen. That is the worst response for a leader that I've ever heard. You need to say, I understand the heat of the emotion of the game. I understand tempers are going to flare. We've got to be better about getting our guys into the stadium.
And again, I get to that. There's an argument. It's like, well, he was doing the Carmen thing, and then he genuinely didn't know what happened. Sure, but that is still the perfect encapsulation.
But I don't care
what he's of just standing there, watching Jack Sawyer get held onto like. It's just, it's not the trend. The trends are Ironically,
Brian,
the trends are suddenly in very different directions.
When you turn around and you see a giant M flag at midfield, I think you know what happened.
I'd say put 2 and 2 together, but I'm not sure you can at this exact moment. And here's what I'll say. And obviously, there's a sense in which Ohio State's going to be good again next year. Okay, Michigan's going to be good again next year, and clearly the records don't matter. But here's the thing. But here's what I'll say. We'll be again throw the records out the end of the year at any time that the game rolls around. But I'm saying, like, from a recruiting, from a roster standpoint, Ohio State is not going to be better next year than they are this year.
No, and that's where I would say because I don't know what this Ohio State team looks like.
You're not going to have the regression Michigan had, but you won't. But here's what I'll say: the talent loss is going to be very similar.
I don't know because I think you can make the argument for the offensive side. Defensively, you're basically brand new.
And again, we'll see. I mean, you know, this is where recruiting matters. This is where development matters. But Ohio State next year will not be more talented than this edition of the team. All year in the offseason, it was Urban, it was Tressel, it was
Nick Saban.
It was everybody going, this is the most talented roster I have ever seen it in college football. 13-10 Michigan. Like, this team's not going to get better. You know who is going to get better? It's Michigan. Michigan just signed the #1 high school recruit in the nation. And he plays quarterback. And they're trending for some pretty big flips as well.
And they flipped some on Saturday.
They got some flips after Underwood committed. They got some flips on Saturday. They're trending for guys like Derek Meadows to flip. And they already, by the way, had a pretty decent recruiting class this past year. Michigan is going to be a better now, throw it all out when the game comes around. These are going to be far more even teams when they meet next year. But Ohio State is not going to be more talented this year. Michigan is going to be vastly more talented than they are this year.
And I think I would disagree with you a little bit on that because I look at, not that Michigan will be better. I think the loss for Ohio State is going to be more of an impact than you think because you're not going to have a veteran quarterback like a Will Howard. You're going to have Julian Sain, which I've not seen enough tape to know.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Sure.
And who's to say Tavian St. Clair, who's to say an Aaron Noland, whatever, can't take that job?
What does your offensive line look like?
What does the offensive line look like?
What's your running back room look like?
You're going to have Caleb Downs most likely. He'll come back.
Yep.
Unless he transfers.
What's your running back room? You're going to have
Jeremiah Smith. You could potentially have Quinshon Judkins come back. Maybe. But he might go pro. I don't think he transfers. I think he stays or he goes pro.
And even so, based on what you just saw. Cool.
And some of that, he was our leading rusher, so that's still a huge
And on the defensive side, that's the big one.
The defensive side, almost everybody you could think of
JTT is gone. Cody Simon's gone.
Tyleek Williams is gone. Jack Sawyer's gone. Lathan Ransom is gone. Denzel Burke is gone. Jordan Hancock is gone. Sonny Styles, I think, is gone.
There's a ton of guys that are not going to be there.
Cody Simon is gone. And, Sonny Styles will be back. Cody Simon is gone for sure. Seth McLaughlin, who had a great year until his injury, he was a stud. There's another piece to your offensive line that's gone.
And again, my point is not that this is going to be a bad team. My point is, if you're looking at Ryan Day and you're going, we threw the bag to work the transfer portal, which, by the way, that can change a whole bunch of stuff, right? Transfer portal work to get all these. This was the Michigan team, right? Let's get all the veterans back in. We're going to make a run for it. Nothing on Saturday.
Yep. And they still got a chance. I mean,
so let's talk playoff then. Like, number one, Ohio State doesn't deserve to be in the playoff. They will get in.
They will.
They do not deserve to be in the playoff.
I would agree with that, and that's from a Buckeye. And they will, and they should be. To me, they are a top 12 team.
And that goes back to maybe the conversation on 12 teams don't deserve to be in the playoff.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's too much. If you're going to do
12, yeah, they're getting in. And here's the interesting thing is, and this is once again why Ohio State fans are some of the most disliked in college football, is because after the game, people are still talking about, and you mentioned it, well, we can still make a run at the Natty. I guess.
And that's a fair.
But on top of that, beyond that, it was, well, at least we'll be back here to host a playoff game. Will you?
And I'm not of that mindset.
I know you're not, but I'm saying the coping of our season's not done.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
And also that moment Sunday.
The assumption of we're going to host a playoff game. That's a pretty big assumption.
Yeah. I was of the mindset.
They are right on the Ohio State for me is right on the cusp of.
So go through your list.
Okay. So let me.
Do you want to go one at a time, like us share who we have one, who we have two? How do you want to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess check yourself with what I've got. So Oregon's the number 1 seed.
Yep.
For me, pretty easy. I think Texas is the number 2. I think they beat Georgia this time around.
Okay.
I have got Arizona State at 3.
See, I've got a little bit of a shakeup already.
Who do you have there?
So I have Oregon 1.
Yep.
Boise State 2. I
think not going to happen.
I think Georgia.
Boise State's not getting that high.
Georgia is gonna beat Texas again. I just think if you're going off of record, you're going to have Boise State with only 1 loss to Oregon. They're going to be the Mountain West champ. You're going to have Georgia at number 3 because they're going to be the SEC champ.
That SEC is going to be real interesting.
SEC is going to have Georgia at the 3rd seed.
By the way, if you're Ohio State, I think you're cheering for Texas.
Oh, for sure.
Because Georgia gets in there and gets the bye. You ain't going ahead of Texas. And it makes it that much. You are trying to get into... You have got to be 8? 8 is the last seed to host.
Yeah.
You've got to be 8 or above.
Yeah.
And you are going to be right on the cusp there.
So I've got Georgia at 3. I have Arizona State at 4.
Okay. I have Boise at 4.
So I have Arizona State at 4. At 5, what do you got?
Notre Dame.
Okay. I got Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, as much as I have, made fun of them for the Northern Illinois
care of business.
They're good. And I've got them playing Clemson.
Okay.
I think Clemson's going to slide in and win the ACC.
So I have Texas at 6 because I think whoever loses that SEC championship will end up there.
See, I have Penn State there.
I think the only reason I have Texas there is because I think right now they've got the 1 loss.
Yep.
And it's to Georgia. I think if they lose a second time, they are a better 2-loss team than a Penn State that also has 2 losses.
I don't know. It's tough.
So I've got Texas at 7, and this is where you're going to disagree with me.
Yep.
I've got Ohio State at 7.
No way. No, I say no.
Do I think they deserve it?
I say no way in the sense of they should not be there. They very well could be. They are going. Here's where
see them flipping 7 or 8.
They are going to end up in that 7 to 10 range, and it depends on how the conference championships shake out. 7 or 8, you get to host. In 9 or 10, you're on the road.
Yep.
And I think it gets a heck of a lot tougher for you.
I've got Ohio State at 7. I think despite the atrocious Michigan game, they have a close loss to Oregon. They've got 2 top 5 wins against Penn State and Indiana. At 8, I have Tennessee.
Dude, that's where I've got Ohio State.
At 8?
At 8.
I could flip them. Honestly, I could go back and forth.
Yeah.
I could have Tennessee at 7, OSU at 8. I do think...
Who would you have Ohio State?
So Ohio State, if I have them at 7, would play Indiana.
See, I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they'll line it up that way.
I don't think so.
For the record, you'd rather have that one than the one I have.
Who do you
Because I have them hosting Georgia.
Well, I've got Ohio State 7, Tennessee at 8, Penn State at 9. I think.
Wow. I think that's way too low.
I think Penn State, they're going to lose to Oregon. I think everybody thinks that. They're going to have 2 losses. When they look at the committee, they're going to go, okay, they had, out of all of their big games, they lost them. And I think you're going to look at that. And do I think it's fair? No. But do I think that's how the committee is going to view it? Yes. Then I've got, as I said before, Indiana at 10.
I have Indiana at 10 as well.
I think Indiana only having the 1 loss will still keep them in it, but I think them getting destroyed by Ohio State really is going to hurt them. And then this is where we switch it up because you had Clemson at 12.
I do have Clemson at 12.
I have Clemson at 11. I have them getting in only because they're the ACC champion. I have them beating.
That's the only way they get it.
The only reason that they are not 12 is because they will have a championship to go along with their name.
So who is your 12? Because it may be my 11.
12 is between 2 teams. I couldn't fully decide.
Correct.
It's either Alabama or Miami. And I honestly, I'm leaning more Miami.
It's Alabama.
It's going to be Alabama. But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be either of them.
Well,
but Miami's going to have 2 losses.
You know who I'd love for it to be that it won't be is South Carolina.
It won't be
because they lost to Alabama already.
And I think BYU and SMU had great runs. I think even SMU is going to lose to SMU plays Clemson.
Yep,
they're going to lose. That's going to knock them out.
There's so much of this, by the way. Obviously, so much of this just hinges on can Clemson steal SMU has to win the ACC to get in. I think. I just have a hard time seeing them get in.
If SMU wins, they're in. I mean, there's no question.
A lot of it will come down to as well, where do teams get ranked on Tuesday night? The initial ranking heading into championship weekend. Because if you're Ohio State,
right now Ohio State's 7th.
Well, in the AP poll.
Yeah.
Ohio State will finish between 7 and 10. And I saw somebody else point this out, and I agree with them. where they get ranked in relation to Tennessee probably determines whether they host a game or not. If they are ranked behind Tennessee, which by the way, I think they should be, Tennessee has 2 losses. Ohio State has 2 losses. I know Ohio State's got we got the top 5.
I'm not going to lie to you though. A lot of people don't want to go see them play at Neyland.
I think that would be. I think Ohio State on the road is a. By the way,
a nervous wreck.
At this point, Ohio State playing anybody is a death trap.
I would be a nervous wreck to go, but I would love to be credentialed for that game to go see a night game at Neyland Stadium in a playoff environment. Sign me the heck up.
I wonder, man. I'm going to apply for that too.
You should.
I mean, I cover Ohio because I do. I cover Ohio State alongside you, right?
You should.
Oh my goodness, can you imagine a playoff game at Neyland?
It would make me, I would vomit. We would have to pull over about every hour so that I could throw up. But taking that in, hearing old Rocky Top. Oh,
yeah. Ohio State.
Give me that.
If Ohio State is ranked ahead of Tennessee on Tuesday night, they will probably host a playoff game and it will probably be against Tennessee. If not, I think you're going on the road. Either way, by the way, in the bracket that I have, the way I have it set up, it would be Ohio State hosting Georgia. If you get through that, you get Oregon. If you get through that, you probably get Notre Dame. Good luck.
Notre Dame being at the end, I'm fine with that.
Are you?
Yeah, I don't believe I have them at 5, but I still.
May I remind you what happened on Saturday?
It doesn't matter.
I think I will. Hey, want to say a big thanks to our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction because maybe you feel like Ryan Day in Ohio State.
I should have known.
You know what you're doing isn't working. You need to transfer in some help, and even that might not be enough. Our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction are the portal to a successful project. Aaron and his team, they've been doing this a long time. They'll communicate openly and honestly, leave you wowed at the finished project. Home, church, or business build, go with the folks with integrity in their name. ElevatedIntegrity.com. The Rivalry also proud to be part of the Varsity Network this season. Powered by Learfield, a must-have for every college football fan. Free to download in the App Store and Google Play Store. Enjoy live college football games and podcasts just like this one. Search for your school or the Rivalry podcast in the Varsity Network app. And speaking of the postseason, if you want to support the podcast, rivalpod.com. We got some sweet t-shirts. You can also do the buy me a coffee option. If you're like, hey, I don't need a shirt, just want to say, hey, support you guys, go with that as well. And on social media at rivalpod. This has been a lot of fun for me. I want to make sure that's perfectly clear.
Zero fun.
The Michigan clock is going to hit 2,000 plus days by the time the game rolls around next time. 4 years in a row. Will Ryan Day be the head coach? No. I'm going to say no. I know Bjork came out and said, hey, I support him. If he does not win a national championship, he should not be the head coach.
I would agree with you, but I think he's gonna. I just got a feeling they're going to stick with him. Here's the last thing I
want to say here. I was about to wrap this up. I want to say one more thing. For the folks in Michigan who are talking about the give him a lifetime contract, keep him forever sort of thing, this is different. So I will caveat this. Reminds me a lot of the Jim Harbaugh forever and ever amen banners. A lot of the give Jim Harbaugh a lifetime contract just for him to turn around and run the table. So be careful with that.
Yeah. Or don't.
But here's the other thing I'll say too, though. Jim Harbaugh inherited a 5-7 Michigan team and immediately started rattling off 10-win seasons. And then, of course, started beating Ohio State after that. Ryan Day inherited a Ferrari and absolutely crashed it. Those are two very different scenarios. Yeah. The lovely image of that's gone around for years now, at least 4, of Urban Meyer handing Ryan Day the game controller saying, it's your turn to play, and him going, thanks, coach. And immediately cutting to the bus that he's driving off a cliff, smashing into the ground below. Those are two very different scenarios. Yeah. But I will say, Ryan Day is still a good football coach, but there's something about the game that he just can't seem to get past, and I, for one, thank him for it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast to the Rivalry Podcast and follow at RivalPod.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RivalPod. To learn how to support the show, shop our merch, and read our blogs, visit rivalpod.com. Make sure to follow us wherever you're listening now. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.